I was 12 the day everything started to fall apart, though. I didn't know it yet. It was a Thursday afternoon. I came home from school and found my dad sitting at the kitchen table with both hands over his face. The only time I'd ever seen him look like that was when the Steelers lost the playoffs in overtime. And even then, he still swore under his breath and poured himself a beer. This was different. He looked like someone had cut the power to his soul. He didn't say anything at first, just sat there until I asked what was wrong. Then he looked up with these red eyes and said, "It's your mom. It's cancer. Stage 4. Before we go further, quick note, tell us in the comments which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. My name is Nate. I'm 25 now. I grew up in a blue-collar town just outside Pittsburgh. My dad, Dennis, owned a hardware supply shop, ran it for almost 30 years. My mom, Diane, was the kind of woman who made everything feel okay. She knew everyone on our street, brought casseroles when people were sick, cheered like a maniac at my baseball games. She never missed a Sunday pancake breakfast or skipped helping me with my science projects. And Sundays, they were a religion in our house. Morning pancakes, then chores out in the yard together, cutting grass, pulling weeds, whatever. Dad and I would work side by side while Mom brought out lemonade. Then we'd all settle in for the Steelers game. Same beat-up couch, same lucky socks. But that cancer, it didn't wait. Within 5 months, my mom was gone. The house got quiet. That kind of silence you don't get used to. Dad still went to work, kept the shop running, but he wasn't the same. He stopped whistling. He stopped asking about school. Sunday pancakes disappeared first, then the games, then the yard work. I tried to keep the rhythm going, but he wasn't in it. Our house used to smell like coffee and pancakes. Now it smelled like whatever takeout he remembered to grab on the way home. Uncle Gary, Dad's older brother, used to come by a lot before that. He was different. Big time real estate guy, flashy watch, new cars every year, but he always made time for us, especially my mom. They were close sometimes, talking late into the night in the backyard. He paid for a second opinion when Mom got sick, pushed for clinical trials, but Dad didn't want to go down that road. They fought about it, loud, ugly. Gary said Dad was giving up too soon. Dad said Gary didn't understand. After that fight, Gary stopped coming around, stopped calling, just vanished. And I think that's when it all really shifted. When the stable ground under my feet started to crack and nobody noticed, because once Mom was gone and Gary was gone, it was just me and Dad. And Dad was already halfway gone too. The first time Dad mentioned Linda, he called her a real breath of fresh air. He met her at a chamber of commerce. Mixer said she worked in marketing and knew how to read a room. That's what he liked. Said she was smart, confident, the type who got things done. She came over for dinner a couple weeks later, brought some fancy baked chicken with lemon glaze, complimented our house, said it had great bones. She smiled a lot and asked me about school football, what I like to do for fun. I told her I played wide receiver, and she actually showed up to my next game. Brought a stadium seat cushion and a thermos of hot chocolate. Cheered louder than half the parents out there. At first, I didn't hate her. She seemed all right, tried hard, told me she wanted us to be a blended family. I didn't know what that meant yet. Not really. Less than 6 months later, they got married at a courthouse. No ceremony, no reception, just a photo of them standing in front of an ivy wall, and Dad smiling like he hadn't in years. Then she and her kids moved in. That's when the shift started. The first week, she repainted my bedroom, said it needed to be light and fresh instead of the dark blue I'd picked out with my mom. She didn't ask, just showed up with paint swatches and a guy from Sherwin-Williams. Family pictures disappeared next. Not all at once, but enough to notice. The framed photo of my mom at my Little League championship gone. The picture of all three of us at Lake Erie replaced with one of her Jake and Mallory in Hilton Head. I brought it up to Dad. He shrugged and said, she's just trying to make it feel like home for everyone. But it didn't feel like home. Not to me. Quick note before we go on, share which city or country you're watching from. Linda started making calls about everything. Groceries, new curtains, even what kind of laundry detergent we used. I came home from practice one day and found she'd cleaned out my closet. said I needed a cleaner look, bought me some stiff khakis and polos from Kohl's. Tossed half my old clothes in a donation bag. It all happened when Dad wasn't around, and she made sure he wasn't. Told him he should pick up more supplier meetings. Said the business needed him out in the field. He started coming home later and later. Left early, too. Some nights I only saw him for 5 minutes before he crashed on the couch. Jake and Mallory weren't mean. They just didn't care. Jake was 2 years older than me, played lacrosse, talked about crypto, barely acknowledged I existed unless we crossed paths in the kitchen. Mallory mostly stayed in her room drawing or FaceTiming friends. If we passed each other, she gave me a tight smile, like I was the tenant, not the step-sibling. One morning I saw Jake pull into the driveway in a brand new Toyota Corolla with a bow on top. Linda was filming it with her phone yelling, "Happy 17th, baby." I asked Dad later if I could maybe start looking at used cars. He scratched the back of his neck and said, "Let's talk after we look at scholarship options. College ain't cheap." That line stuck with me. College ain't cheap. Like I hadn't heard that before. Like I didn't already know we were pinching pennies while Linda's kids were getting new tech private tutors, name brand everything. One night I came down for water and heard her on the phone with a friend. "He's a sweet kid," she said, "but he's stuck in the past. This family can't move forward with his mother's ghost hanging over everything." That hit like a punch to the throat. I didn't say anything the next morning, just went to school, went to practice, kept my head down. But it kept playing in my mind. His mother's ghost. Like my mom was a problem. Like remembering her was holding everyone back. I started keeping my door closed more, ate in my room, spent weekends at the library just to be away from the house. Every time I opened my mouth to talk to Dad, Linda was there first pouring his coffee, massaging his shoulders, saying, "You've got a lot on your plate, Dennis." And he just nodded, always nodded. I stopped bringing stuff up. What was the point? By the end of junior year, I didn't recognize my house or my dad or myself, honestly. But I sure as hell knew one thing. Whatever blending Linda thought was happening, I was getting squeezed out of the picture. Quietly, but completely. Senior year had just started when the call came. I was sitting in second period trying to stay awake through American government when the principal's voice came over the intercom asking me to come to the office. No reason, no warning, just Nathan Carter to the front office. When I walked in, the school counselor was waiting, pale and shaky. She looked like she didn't know where to begin. "Your father's been in an accident," she said. "There's someone on the way to take you to the hospital." My ears rang. I couldn't make sense of her words. My dad accident. I don't remember the ride there. Just cold hands, fast turns, and the dull thud of my heart banging through my ribs. When I got to the ER, Linda was already in the waiting area, dressed in business casual like nothing had touched her. Jake and Mallory were on their phones, sitting against the wall like they were waiting for a table at Olive Garden. "Where is he?" I asked, breathless. She stood and smoothed her blouse. "They're working on him. He's unconscious. The impact was pretty severe." I tried to push past her, but she grabbed my arm. "Let the doctors do their job. We've already spoken with them." 3 hours later, he was gone. Massive internal bleeding head trauma, never regained consciousness. I stood by his bed, held his hand, and told him I'd make him proud. Even though the machines were off, even though I knew he couldn't hear me, they let us say goodbye. Linda cried soft, controlled tears like she was acting out a scene. Mallory sniffled. Jake didn't look up once. At the funeral, Linda went full. Broadway rented out a massive chapel we'd never set foot in, hired some acoustic duo to play weepy ballads, passed out printed programs with photos of her and Dad, posed like a retirement brochure. She gave the eulogy, told a whole room of people that Dennis Carter was her partner in every sense, that they'd built a life together, rooted in love, trust, and shared dreams. I sat in the second row wanting to scream. My dad wasn't some corporate husband she'd known for 30 years. They were married for 2. He never said shared dreams in his life. Afterward, I stood outside just trying to breathe when Uncle Gary showed up. First time I'd seen him in years. He looked older, thinner still, sharp in a gray suit, but tired around the eyes. He pulled me into a hug, tight, like he meant it. "We need to talk, Nate. Not now, but soon." Before I could respond, Linda stepped in between us with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Gary," she said icily, "didn't expect to see you here." I came for my brother, he replied, not backing down. She hooked her arm through mine. We were just about to head back to the house. Come on, Nathan. And just like that, he was gone again. A few days later, we met with the attorney for the will reading. I didn't expect much. I figured Dad left everything to be split or sold. But the moment I heard Linda's name read out over and over again, my stomach sank. The house left to her outright. The business also hers, full ownership and controlling interest. There was a clause that I could reside in the home through completion of college, provided continued academic enrollment. That was the language cold, legal conditional. I waited for the part about the trust fund, the one Mom and Dad had talked about for years, the one meant to pay for school. That was still there technically, but with a catch. Linda was named the trustee until I turned 25. I looked at the lawyer. So she controls the money. He cleared his throat. She manages the distribution of it for educational purposes until your birthday in 8 years. I glanced over. Linda smiled like it was all business. Of course I'll make sure you're taken care of, Nathan. That's what family does. Jake smirked from across the table. Mallory didn't even look up. Afterward, I cornered the lawyer in the hallway. Did my dad change his will recently? He looked uncomfortable. It was updated about 11 months ago. Right after Jake's new car. Right after the family photos disappeared. Right when Dad started working extra hours at Linda's suggestion. I walked out of that office with a weight in my chest that didn't let up. I wasn't just grieving my dad. I was watching everything he built. Everything. We were getting handed over to a woman who'd only known us for 2 years and whose own kids looked at me like I was an afterthought. I tried calling Uncle Gary straight to voicemail. At dinner that night, Linda served salmon and quinoa. No one said a word. Jake chewed with his mouth open. Mallory watched something on her phone. I sat there pushing food around my plate, trying to swallow the fact that I lived in a house that technically wasn't mine, with people who didn't want me there, and a future I had no real control over. But I kept my mouth shut. I still had the trust, even if she held the keys. So I told myself one thing: watch. Listen, wait, because something about this whole thing didn't smell right, and I wasn't about to let my dad's name or mine get buried under Linda's empire. A week after the funeral, Linda called a family meeting. She said it with a weird kind of cheer, like she was announcing vacation plans. We all sat in the living room, Jake half reclined, Mallory scrolling her phone me on the edge of the ottoman, like I was bracing for impact. Linda clapped her hands once. Okay, so we're going to make a few updates to the living situation just to make things more balanced. Jake glanced at her and smirked. That's when I knew. Nathan, she said, folding her hands in her lap like a guidance counselor. Since Jake's in his final year and needs more space for school and lacrosse equipment, we've decided he'll take your room. I blinked. What? She tilted her head like she pitied how slow I was. You'll move to the attic. We're setting it up with a bed and a desk. It'll be private and quiet. Better for studying. It's not insulated, I said. It gets freezing in the winter. We'll get a space heater, she replied, already done with the conversation. I looked at my dad's chair. Empty. I didn't argue, didn't shout, just stood up and walked to my room, knowing I had maybe 2 days left in it. By Friday, my stuff was boxed up and moved upstairs. The attic smelled like dust and old insulation. There was a single small window, and the ceiling sloped so low I had to duck near the walls. The floor creaked with every step. They gave Jake a mini fridge and a Bluetooth speaker system, me a folding table, and a leftover twin bed frame. While you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from. The next blow came quiet and sneaky. One Saturday, I went to the garage looking for a photo album I'd left in a plastic bin. It was gone. So were the framed pictures of my mom I'd stored in the hall closet and the snow globe collection she used to keep on the bookshelf. I checked every corner of the house. Nothing. I asked Linda straight up, Yo, did you move my mom's stuff? She didn't look up from her laptop. Some of the clutter's been donated. We're making space for new memories. Clutter. It's not personal, Nathan. It's just we're in a new chapter now. Jake and Mallory decorated the tree that year with silver and navy ornaments Linda bought at Macy's. No popcorn strings, no handmade crafts from my childhood, none of Mom's cheesy angel figurines. We didn't make cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning. We had eggs Benedict and mimosas. I sat there drinking orange juice from a champagne glass, trying not to throw up. Things kept shifting, little things. I asked for new cleats. Mine were splitting at the toe. Linda said, "Let's talk about budget first. Have you tried gluing them?" 2 weeks later, Jake got a new pair of custom-molded lacrosse gloves. Mallory's birthday came, and Linda transformed the dining room into a full-on art gallery. Easels, canvas racks, string lights, even one of those stupid berets. "Art fuels her soul," she said proudly. I got a used calculator for my trig class and had to email Linda a screenshot of the school requirement just to get that approved. She made me forward every textbook list and club fee before giving me a cent. "I'm just keeping track," she'd say. "Trustees are supposed to be responsible." I got a part-time job at a used bookstore 2 towns over. It was quiet, smelled like paper and coffee, and nobody looked at me like I didn't belong. I shelved fiction and memorized the scholarship bulletin board in the back. I studied between shifts. If I couldn't rely on the trust I had to earn my way out. One night after my shift, I found Linda in the kitchen with papers spread all over the counter. I stood in the hall and watched. She had a legal pad and a laptop open to the business bank account. She was mumbling, "Payrolls draining us. God, that HVAC bill, maybe another transfer from the Carter Trust." I stepped into the room, and she jumped. "Didn't hear you," she said, quickly, closing the laptop. "What's draining the trust?" She straightened her blouse. "Nothing's draining anything. Some of the investments are just underperforming. And temporary dips. You're using it for the business. It's all within guidelines," she said, voice sharpening. "You still have access to your education funding. No one's denying you anything you've actually needed." I didn't buy it. A week later, I got confirmation. I was coming down the stairs and stopped when I heard her talking to Jake in the kitchen. "I only moved some of the money," she said, whispering. "It's not like he'll figure it out, and even if he does, there's no paper trail strong enough for court." Jake laughed. "So, what, you're just moving it around?" She nodded. "It's just reallocation. The trust's still technically intact. He'll be fine." I stood frozen on the stairwell, heart pounding in my ears. She wasn't just stretching the rules. She was robbing me, and she knew it. And I went back up to the attic and didn't sleep that night. I didn't confront her, not yet, because if she was hiding it that well, I needed proof. I needed a way out, but I knew right then I was no longer her stepson. I was an obstacle, a legal inconvenience. And if I wanted to survive it, I had to start playing the long game. I didn't sleep after hearing Linda admit what she was doing. Just stared at the attic ceiling, watching headlights flash through the window every few minutes, like a metronome, counting down the end of something. By morning, I had a plan. At breakfast, I told her, "Good news. I found summer housing near campus. One of the older guys on the team needed a roommate." She didn't look up from her phone. "Wow, that's fast. Convenient." "Yeah, I'll be out by the weekend." She paused, finally glancing up. "What about your mail? Should we forward it somewhere?" "I'll figure it out." She just smiled. "Great. Glad to see you taking initiative." That night I packed 2 duffel bags, clothes, notebooks, a few photos I had stashed in a textbook, and my dad's old pocket knife. Everything else stayed behind. I didn't say goodbye. I slid into my 2007 Ford Focus, the one Dad gave me on my 16th birthday, and drove 2 towns over to a church parking lot I remembered from a summer job. Big, quiet, no cameras. That car became my home. The back seats folded down flat enough for me to stretch out. I laid a sleeping bag across them and rolled a hoodie into a pillow. I joined a cheap gym so I could shower before work. Got a weekend pass first, then upgraded once I saved enough. Morning shifts were at a local diner, greasy grill regulars who tipped in crumpled bills and an owner who barked orders like we were on a ship. I kept my head down, flipped pancakes, scrubbed burnt eggs off plates. Nights I stocked shelves at a department store, unloading boxes, folding clothes, building displays. I'd leave around midnight and drive to a new lot every other night, rotating between the church, a hospital overflow lot, and a strip mall that stayed half empty. I told no one, not coworkers, not professors, nobody. When people asked how my summer was going, I smiled and said, busy but good. I kept my trunk like a closet. One side for clean clothes, one for dirty laundry. A milk crate held my toiletries, another had snacks. I ate leftover diner toast, expired pastries, whatever I could manage without a microwave. The worst part wasn't the smell or the backaches or the constant fear of getting towed. It was the silence. At night, when the roads quieted and the fog rolled across the windshield, I'd just lie there staring at nothing. Sometimes I'd play the last voicemail Dad left me. Just him reminding me to rotate the tires and asking if I wanted to grab pizza. It always ended the same. Love you, bud. I didn't cry. Not much, but I'd feel it in my chest. Like something pressing down from the inside trying to break out. One night it stormed bad. Wind shook the car. Rain hammered the roof like fists. I curled up in the sleeping bag, shivering. Lightning lit up the inside in flashes, and for a second, I saw my reflection in the rearview mirror. Sunken eyes, jaw tight, skin pale. I didn't recognize myself. I missed hot meals, I missed steady ground, I missed hearing someone say goodnight. I started writing everything down. Every weird expense Linda approved, every comment she made, anything I overheard at the house. I kept a notebook in my glove box filled with notes and questions and possible moves. But mostly, I tried to survive. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd get through the summer, register for fall, scrape by. Some nights I thought about driving to Uncle Gary's place, just showing up. But I hadn't heard from him since the funeral. And showing up, broke, desperate and angry, didn't seem like the best pitch. So I stayed put. I stayed. I became invisible on purpose, took up less space, made less noise. I kept the car clean-shaved in the gym bathroom, acted normal. Because the one thing I still had, the only thing Linda couldn't touch, was that I hadn't quit. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of falling apart. Not yet. It was a Thursday morning, barely 7:00 a.m. The diner was half dead, just the regulars at the counter grumbling over watery coffee and the weather. I was refilling creamers when I heard a voice I hadn't heard in over a year. Black coffee, no sugar. I turned, and there he was. Uncle Gary. He looked sharper than the rest of the room. Tailored coat, pressed shirt, leather briefcase on the stool next to him, but when he got a good look at me, his whole face changed. Nathan, he said, standing, what the hell happened to you? I didn't answer right away, just wiped my hands on my apron and nodded toward the corner booth. Wait for me. I'm off in 20. He didn't hesitate, just sat down and watched me work, eyes following me like he was trying to rewind time in his head. After my shift, I slid into the booth across from him. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I live in my car, I said. Dad's trust is being drained. Linda's running the business into the ground and using my money to keep it afloat. His face hardened. Where are you staying? Parking lots, gym showers, diner food. You've been doing this all summer. Yeah. He didn't blink, just stared like he wanted to burn a hole through the wall behind me. You should have come to me. You disappeared after the funeral. I didn't even have your number. He cursed under his breath. Get in the car. I followed him out into the morning sun, blinking hard from exhaustion. He opened the door to a black Lexus and tossed my duffel in the back. We drove straight to his house, a place I hadn't been since I was a kid. Gated drive, clean white stone quiet. His housekeeper opened the door, shocked to see me. Within minutes, I had a hot plate of food in front of me. Eggs, toast, actual bacon. I ate like I hadn't seen a real meal in months, because I hadn't. He stood over me. There's a guest room upstairs. Shower, clean towels. Rosa will find you something to wear. I nodded, mouthful, eyes burning from how fast it was all happening. You're not sleeping in that damn car again, ever. I didn't argue. Just climbed the stairs after eating, found the bed, and collapsed. Clean sheets, soft pillow, real mattress. It was the first time I slept more than 4 hours in weeks. Next morning, we were in his lawyer's office by 9 Noraye. Big glass table, leather chairs, downtown view. Gary sat next to me. Tell him everything. So I did. Every detail. I laid it out. The attic, the expense approvals, the missing keepsakes, the overheard conversation with Jake, the money she claimed was underperforming. The lawyer, tall guy with a thick notepad, wrote fast, interrupting only to clarify numbers. Gary leaned forward. We're going after her legally and hard. Can we? I asked. She's the trustee. She's not bulletproof, the lawyer said, especially if she's misappropriating funds. That's fraud. What about the business? Gary looked at me. You were supposed to inherit a majority stake eventually. That paperwork vanished when she restructured after your dad died. We'll find it. They kept talking legal terms flying between them. All I could think about was the notebook still in my glove box, filled with everything I'd documented. I told them about it. Bring it, Gary said. We'll scan everything. Later that afternoon, Rosa helped me dig through my car for it. She didn't say anything about the back seat setup, but her eyes watered when she saw the blankets. I handed Gary the notebook at dinner. He looked at the scribbled notes, the dates, the comments I'd overheard. You did all this while working 2 jobs and living in your car, he asked. Didn't really have a choice. He slapped the notebook shut. She has no idea what's coming. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that. The audit didn't take long. Once Gary's lawyer got access to the trust records, it was all right there. Clear as day, over $18,000 gone. She'd funneled money into her failing business in chunks marked as investment capital and temporary operating advances. She wrote herself monthly trustee management fees even though she was legally entitled to none. Jake's college tuition billed to the trust. Mallory's art camp in Santa Fe, same thing. She even paid for a weekend spa trip and listed it as wellness recovery. I saw the receipts. Our lawyer didn't waste time. He drafted a letter, cold sharp, just the facts. Then we scheduled a meeting. Neutral location. Gary's conference room downtown. Linda showed up alone. No blazer, no smug smile, just a tight-lipped look and a folder clutched like a shield. Gary and I sat across from her. Our lawyer ran through the evidence without flinching. Every transfer, every made-up fee, every line she crossed. Linda didn't say a word until the end. Then she leaned forward and said, "This was never malicious. I did what I thought was best for the family." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "Best for the family you stole from your dead husband's kid while I was living in my car." Her jaw twitched. "You never came to me." "I did. You ignored it. Just like you ignored what the trust was for my future, not your next Target run." Gary stepped in. "You've got 2 options. Full restitution and you walk away, or we press charges and you deal with the DA." She froze. Then her eyes darted to the lawyer. "What do I have to sign?" That afternoon she signed everything, agreed to repay the full amount. Principal plus interest. She resigned from the business immediately. Control of the trust went straight to Gary. She looked at me one last time as she left. "I hope someday you'll see that I tried." "You didn't try," I said. "You took." I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, the district attorney called Gary's lawyer, said he'd reviewed our evidence, the fake invoices, the personal charges, the pattern of intentional fraud. He wasn't letting it slide. The charges came in fast. Wire fraud breach of fiduciary duty embezzlement. Linda's lawyer begged for a deal, said it would ruin her kids' lives, said she didn't have a record, didn't matter. They worked out a plea, reduced charges, no jail time, but a felony on her record probation, and full financial oversight going forward. She took it. Jake and Mallory didn't say a word to me during the entire process. Not a text, not a call, nothing. They packed up and left town by the end of the month. Last I heard, they moved somewhere outside Cincinnati. Smaller place, older car, no more private lessons or art showcases. The house went up for sale. The business, what was left of it, got placed under a professional manager, one Gary had worked with before. She cleaned house fast, streamlined the books, let go of a few hires Linda had brought in, and started repairing vendor relationships. I met with her once. She shook my hand and said, "Your dad built something solid. We're going to get it back there." She meant it. The trust funds were moved into a secure account. Gary opened it up to me. Full visibility. I could see every deposit, every invoice, every transfer. He even had the bank flag, any unusual activity, just in case. For the first time since my dad died, I could breathe. No games, no tricks, just facts and freedom. Gary sat me down that weekend. "You didn't deserve any of that," he said. "I should have been there earlier. I didn't blame him. Not anymore. Life hits hard and fast. What mattered was that That when it counted, he showed up. I walked out to the driveway that night, stood next to my old Ford Focus, and looked up at the sky. For months, that car had been my prison, my shelter, my last shred of pride. Now it was just a car again. But me, I was finally free. Every Sunday after that, Gary made dinner. No matter how busy he was, no excuses. Sometimes we ate steak, sometimes just spaghetti and garlic bread. But it was always just us sitting across from each other, like clockwork. He'd put his phone away. No TV, just plates, silverware, and 2 chairs at the island counter. First Sunday, I brought up the old days. Dad used to make pancakes every Sunday morning. Gary nodded, chewing slowly. He told me once that was his favorite part of the week. There was a long pause. Then he cleared his throat. You know why I disappeared after your mom got sick? I looked up. Because of the fight. That was part of it, he said. But the bigger reason I was sick too. Prostate cancer stage 2. I didn't want to drop that on Dennis when he was losing Diane. Jesus, Gary. I made it through. Surgery worked, but I wasn't strong enough to handle both losses. I figured staying away was better than showing up a mess. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just said, I'm glad you're still here. He smiled. Me too. After that, he started teaching me stuff, the kind of things no one teaches you in school, how to build a monthly budget, and what compound interest really means, the difference between a tax deduction and a tax credit, how to tell when someone's lying in a contract just by the way they phrase things. He didn't make it feel like a lecture. He'd toss a folded bank statement on the table and say, all right, walk me through this. Tell me what's working and what isn't. I started to like it. Not just because it made me feel in control, but because it made me feel connected to something bigger than survival. That fall, I moved into a small apartment just off campus. Nothing fancy. Creaky floors, mismatched cabinets, but it was mine. No attic, no silent stairs, no tension. I cut back to one job tutoring freshmen in accounting. Less money, but way more manageable. My grades bounced back hard. I started showing up early to lectures, stayed after class to ask questions. I actually felt like I was part of something. One professor told me, I wish half my students had your drive. That hit different. Then, one night, I saw a flyer in the library, Student Support Center, volunteers needed for homeless outreach. I stared at it for a while. I'd never told anyone what happened that summer. Not fully, but I still kept that notebook. And I still remembered what it felt like to shower in a gym stall and eat stale toast for dinner. So I showed up. The center was run by a woman named Camille. Early 40s, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. I filled out the form and wrote, experience with housing insecurity under relevant skills. Camille read it, looked at me, and said, we'll start you with intake. Within 2 weeks, I was helping students navigate emergency housing requests, book free therapy sessions, apply for food stipends. A kid named Leo told me, I didn't think anyone here gave a damn. I said, yeah, I used to think that too. That was the moment. The exact one. I remember walking out of the office that night thinking, this is what I want to do. Not just budgets, not just numbers impact. I changed my major that week, added a focus in nonprofit management. Gary didn't blink, just said, helping people is a hell of a good reason to get out of bed. He even came to one of our volunteer banquets, sat in the back, clapped after my speech, told me afterward, you found your lane. I felt it too. Like all the crap I'd gone through the attic, the lies, the car, the cold. It wasn't just survival, it built something. Not bitterness, not revenge, purpose. I didn't talk to Linda. I didn't look up where she moved or what happened to Jake and Mallory. It wasn't my business anymore. What I had was this. A mentor who showed up when it mattered, a place to sleep that didn't have wheels, and a future I was building for myself brick by brick on solid ground. By senior year, things felt solid for the first time in a long time. I was on track to graduate with honors, full course load, top of my nonprofit management cohort, 2 professors pushing me toward grad school. The trust fund rock steady. Gary gave me monthly reports, walked me through every line, made sure I understood not just what I had, but how to protect it. You turn 25, this becomes yours, he said, and you'll be ready. I believed him. That winter, I joined the board of my dad's company, and not as a CEO in training, just a member. I didn't want to come in swinging or pretend I knew more than I did. The professional manager we'd brought in, Liz, was killing it. She had the team trimmed, processes tight, and morale better than it had been in years. I told her, I'm not here to take over. I'm here to understand what Dad built. She nodded. Smart. That's how real leadership starts. We started digging through the archives, old files, contracts, asset lists, trying to untangle what Linda had touched. One afternoon, Liz called me into the office. You need to see this, she said, pulling up her screen. It was an email thread dated right in the middle of Linda's power trip. She was corresponding with some third-party broker, talking about quiet liquidation of warehouse property, trying to sell one of the company's biggest physical assets off-market. No board approval, no valuation, just backdoor maneuvering. If this had gone through, Liz said, she would have bled your dad's legacy dry. I forwarded it to Gary. His reply was short. This seals her fate. The documents got added to the official record. We submitted them to the state licensing office and to the court that handled the original trust dispute. The result, Linda was permanently barred from holding any future trustee or fiduciary role in the state. If she ever tried to touch someone else's money again, she'd be shut down before she got her hands on it. No courtroom, no press, just a quiet official ban. The kind that lives in records and follows you forever. I didn't celebrate. I didn't call her, but I did sit in my car for a few minutes that day, just breathing. One more door closed for good. I stayed connected with a few of the employees at the shop, guys who'd worked there since my dad's early days. One of them, Tony, pulled me aside after a meeting. Your dad'd be proud, he said. You didn't let his name get dragged. That stuck with me more than any award. With the company stabilized and my academics humming, I started thinking bigger. What if what happened to me wasn't just a story? What if it became a platform? I started applying for graduate fellowships, nonprofit leadership, public policy, community engagement programs that had let me take what I'd lived and scale it up. Real funding, real research, real reach. I didn't want to just help the few kids walking through our campus center. I wanted to hit every campus in the country where someone like me was sleeping in their car, pretending it was fine. Gary helped me prep every application. Liz wrote one of my letters. Camille from the support center wrote another. I wasn't doing it to prove anything to Linda. I didn't care about her anymore. I was doing it because I finally saw what could come next. And this time I wasn't alone. Graduation day hit me harder than I expected. Not because I doubted I'd make it. I'd been locked in for over a year. But because when I walked into that gym and saw Gary sitting in the front row, clean-shaven suit, pressed, grinning like a proud dad at a Little League game, I almost lost it. He spotted me before I got to the stage, gave me a thumbs up like we were sharing a private joke, like he knew exactly what it took to get there. I walked across, shook the dean's hand, and held that diploma like it weighed 1,000 tlawabs, not from paper, but from everything it took to earn it. Every cold night in my car, every time I swallowed my pride, every moment I kept pushing when nobody was watching. Afterward, I found Gary in the crowd, and he pulled me into a hug right there in front of everyone. Your dad would be proud, Nate, he said. He really would. I nodded throat tight. Thanks for not letting me quit. You did that on your own, he said. I just made sure you had a place to land. We got dinner that night. Burgers and fries, nothing fancy. Just like we used to when I was a kid after my baseball games. A week later, I moved into a better apartment. I was still small, but clean, safe, and warm. I started consulting part-time for a youth housing nonprofit, helping them improve their donor outreach. I kept volunteering at the student center, too. It grounded me. The first few nights in the new place were weird. I'd wake up around 3:00 a.m., heart pounding, convinced I was still in my car parked under a street light, waiting for a knock on the window. Took a while to shake that. Therapy helped. Gary helped more. He'd check in once a week, not just about finances or business. He'd ask how I was, if I was eating, sleeping, breathing. Some wounds take longer to close than others, but they do close eventually. I stopped hating Linda. Hate took energy I didn't want to give her. She didn't deserve that space in my head. I was just glad the court saw her for what she was. Glad the paper trail did its job. Glad she didn't get to rewrite the ending. That chapter's over. I've got real friends now. People who know the full story and didn't walk away. People who call me out when I start bottling stuff up. People who treat me like I belong. Not like I'm someone who got tacked onto their lives late and unwanted. I've got a good job, a mission I care about, a degree I earned. Not just for me, but for the kid I used to be. The one who needed someone to believe in him. Life didn't magically get easier, but I got better at fighting for it. And that counts for something. My dad used to say, being a man means taking hits and staying on your feet. Well, I took a lot, and I'm still standing.